Alrighty, what's up, guys? Ronaldo here. Always appreciate you guys smashing the like button if you enjoy the content. I'm gonna show you guys the latest trades as you guys see in most of these videos. With this pullback, Ethereum did make a low, did lose, not lose 4K officially, but did go down lower as I suspected in the last video. I was talking about, the potential of wake me up when September ends. It looks more and more like you will get that situation. I'll show you guys a few things in the charts that kind of support a bottom in early October, later this month, within a week, maybe 10 days, 2 weeks the most, something of that nature. And, AVAX, that trade is still actually in the green, surprisingly, throughout this, kind of pullback, because that was the recent one entered. So AVAX has had some immunity, and it's kind of showing, sometimes you jinx yourself when you say this because it's like, oh, my coin's holding up well, and then everything just falls off a cliff. But, I think this time it should be able to, kind of hold up kind of well here throughout this drop. And I think a lot of altcoins are continuing to, kind of outperform Ethereum, which is good. If you guys are interested in making some of these trades, I always post them all: stop losses, take profit, it's entry points in the Discord. The link is down below. If you want one free month in there and you're interested in trading, check out. We got 3 hours remaining on BYDFI for this 10K worth of ETH giveaway for trading volume. 3 hours to get it. Check it out for trading volume, not bad. And then BloFin, we always do a deposit bonus and 20% free fees for life. That's 20% free fees for life in BYDFI as well. Remember, if you sign up to either of these, deposit at least $100, to give you one free month in the Aldo Empire, the premium Discord channels with those trade setups and all that. Just open a support ticket in Discord with your UID or your email, and we'll get you sorted. Now, let's get into the fun part. So, you do have the the bearish div on the monthly. I'm sure, I haven't watched what a lot of other Market Cipher analysts have been saying too much. I think CryptoFace is still relatively bullish from the last video that I skimmed. That was a killer intro with Mandarin in the beginning. I love it. I wouldn't be too afraid of this just yet. You're not in quarter four yet with the red dot in the monthly, and I do think you may see such a situation like here where you're getting kind of a green continuation. I think it is something to be slightly concerned about, but given where we are right now, I think I don't really care that much about Bitcoin. I think this is just, when you're going to more sideways consolidating while your alts, run, and you have an ETH season and hopefully an altcoin season in the coming months, you do see kind of the bearish thing. So I wouldn't get too worried as of yet, but you are seeing, where was it? Blood Diamond on the 5-day. Maybe I should be more concerned about this, but I'm not. I think you will come down a little bit lower, maybe 102. I could see 102, potentially. It's not that far away. We're at 111 right now, 7%. And generally things drop down quicker than they go up a lot of times. So, it could be something like that, in this candle, and then within the next, 2 or 3 days or something even down to this point. So, when would I get worried? It would be if you lose 102 somewhat. I'm not the biggest breakout kind of guy generally, but if you lose kind of this area, this 102, especially past October 8th, that's where it's time to worry a little bit. You know what I mean? But until then, I think you're still in healthy correction territory. And the way I would guess, if I had to make an educated guess on what we're going to do here, some situation probably sooner, probably like this or that, probably absolute best case scenario 153 by end of October, which if you're like that, stranger things have happened. That was end of 2024, and that's when did the Fed last start to cut rates, end of 24. So if it's like that, and end of 23 was really good to us, it's like that, you can get a jump up like that. And it almost seems too obvious and too easy to get the run away, take the money and run at that point. But we'll see what happens. But in some more of the short term, I do think, you could try to, it depends what you're into, but you could try to short this. Something like that would probably work. Not the best risk reward ratio. You could go a little tighter, maybe try to squeeze in a 2-to-1 there. Something like that. Or if you're feeling really, confident, trying to get down to 107 or even 103, those type of areas for, potential short there. So that's what it's looking like right now. I do think, in all likelihood, be careful though. We are it's going to get to the weekend in a day, so just be careful. But yeah, that's ultimately what I'm looking at there in Bitcoin overall, especially on this, 9, 10 hour, coming down here, not looking the best. If you move on to Ethereum, the thing I'm looking at, money flow coming down. Your daily next green dot may give you what you need if that's end of September. What I would be a little even more confident on for a potential swing long, trigger wave on the 2-day, this coming up, sometime in early October, end of this month at the earliest, that 2-day trigger wave. And I mean, you'll probably, my guess is you'll bottom somewhere in this pocket, like this big, see this big pocket here, somewhere between like 37 and high 35. If you lose, just like losing 102 or 100 on Bitcoin, if you lose the 35, you lose this area over here, that's where it gets a little bit more worrisome, especially if you lose this spider line at some point, in where the spider line is. If you lose that spider line, that's where it gets more worrisome. But I don't think that'll happen. Like if I had to really, make an educated guess to what will happen, something of this nature, and then, October, stranger things have happened. It's not impossible by the end of October to come up to 7,500 or 7,300, something over here. That'd be best case scenario. If I had to guess, probably something like this, and then hopefully into November, not that, I don't think we're going to get to 11K, but hopefully into November, 7, 8K, low end 5,800. We'll see what happens. We take it day by day. But, obviously, as I've always talked about, if you've been watching my videos, this 3-week, I would not get concerned. This 3-week giving you a red dot would be more concerning. That would be a really good sell signal. And losing like 3,500 would be more concerning too. So you don't have those things yet. So therefore, I think you're okay and still in healthy correction territory. A lot of yellow X's and such like that, generally more continued dumpage signs. I feel like you just need to retest, this kind of big area here, and then you're kind of off on your way. And that would be maybe up to a 30% correction or something. Probably 25% to 30 is what I would, my best guess would be. If you look at ETH versus Bitcoin, came down a little bit. I think it'll come down a little bit more, somewhere around here, and get a nice bounce and hopefully get up to this target. Hopefully by November or December or something. This area, 0.05 at least, hopefully. So yeah, and then Bitcoin dominance, I think that will come up just a little bit more. And then I think the thing to look at here would be probably the next daily red dot, kind of the opposite of what you're looking at on Ethereum. This going, this rejecting from say like 60% or something and going downward, that would be a really good sign for altcoins. Now, the thing too, for alt season and all that type of stuff, I think you could hopefully expect to see at least what you saw in quarter 4 of, last year or quarter 4 of 2023, hopefully. It could be hopefully it's not a 3 strikes you're out type thing. You get no altcoin season at all. I think that's less likely. But when you look here, I mean, it's still others versus Bitcoin still looks like it should continue forward. I mean, you're getting kind of a reverse head and shoulders. I would think this should at least, at some point here, jump back up to levels that we saw in January of this year, which is kind of lackluster still, but it's something. Let's play it day by day. I think this should continue to go forward, and then that 2-month is really good. It confirms in a month, but very rare bullish sign. I mean, look at the last time. Here a lot of green candles. Do we have time for that? I don't know. I mean, based on the 4-year cycle, maybe it's extended this year. I don't think it will be extended, but based on how high Bitcoin already went, and ETH already making a new all-time high. But we'll see what happens. Others versus ETH, I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this one, but looking really good as well on that 2-week. This looking really good doesn't really give me like a cycle top indication. These were previous cycle tops, January 2018. It was at a high. This was also, October, November of 21. You were kind of at, you were coming up a lot. So, I would at least hope that we come up a lot. Like this would be very good if we can get something like that, but we'll see what happens. Others itself, hopefully you continue forward and get some more, continuation on these signs and even break above here. We'll see what happens. But I mean, probably, if every altcoin does 2 or 3x, which I think is still doable, kind of like what you saw last, quarter 4 in 2024, then you could be well on your way up to some of these levels. Now, few individual alts that I've been looking at, AVAX, like I mentioned earlier in that trade, rejecting a little bit, consolidating. Hopefully it holds up pretty good against ETH here. Maybe just comes down a little bit more. I don't know, maybe 27 here or something. And then kind of goes on its way, continuing forward. And I would look for the main sell signal here. And you got some time. I mean, next kind of trigger wave to the downside, maybe in November, December would be, kind of next sell signal. So hopefully you jump forward. And I mean, I think there's a good shot still at like $90 or something, but obviously take it day by day. Solana is another good one. I mean, I'm just waiting kind of for this daily trigger. I think that would be a good potential long, here. especially if it goes back down to 188, which it could. So keep an eye on that. CRO, big correction since kind of the good news coming out with this, something, with the Trump stuff and all that. I think you may go to a little bit lower, but, like everything else almost, keep an eye on that 2-day trigger, and you should get that, within a week, 2 weeks, something like that. Probably sooner rather than later. Doge, people have asked me about, kind of similar to a lot of other things like that daily, just look for some of these trigger waves and try to, run it back up to, these highs. In terms of market cap, you rejected from kind of your old all-time high here, which was 77 cents. I don't have the full chart. I should, whatever, take my word for it. Like 47, 48 cents was equivalent to 70 something cents, the peak in 2021. That's how bad the inflation and tokenomics are on this, but I think you can continue and get back to that area, hopefully. Cardano, a lot of people, it's always that, like, it's always going to be one of those well-known coins, at least for now, unless it really does terribly. But, the thing kind of waiting for some of these, trigger waves and such, to bring it forward like a lot of other things. It does look like it will go down a little bit more in the short term. So just keep an eye on that. Thing I'll leave you off with is for traditional markets, the NASDAQ is starting to kind of come down a little bit. So sometimes it kind of, crypto kind of preludes the NASDAQ. Maybe, crypto bottoms out within a week, something like that. And then the NASDAQ comes down more for like the first week of October, something of that nature. I mean, this is kind of, maybe you drop back to like 580. I don't think it's going to be anything like too crazy, some situation like this into the beginning of October. And then, kind of, I think that's doable into, end of year, kind of your Santa rally, November, December, some situation like this, just, based on how this normally moves. 630 would kind of be my guess, maybe. And then, from there, you'll probably get some type of correction in 2026. But to kind of sum it all up, I think that we're still okay. I wouldn't get too afraid. I think, October, very likely. Up November, pretty likely as well. So just hang in there for now, I think. Obviously not financial advice, anything could happen. But check out those changes down below if you're interested in trading. Like I mentioned, smash the like button, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a good one. Goodbye.